Welcome to Healers Talk Healing, the podcast where we gather to explore the art and science of holistic healing, uncovering the secrets to a happier, healthier you. I'm your host, Nina Ganguly, and together we will delve into the intriguing world of holistic healing, delving into the mind-body connection, ancient wisdom, and natural remedies. Get ready for enlightening stories, thought-provoking expert interviews, and practical tips that will empower you to unlock your true potential and embrace a vibrant, balanced life. Whether you're an experienced wellness enthusiast or simply curious about the power of healing, join us on this exhilarating journey as we share the wisdom and insights that can truly transform your life. It's time to embark on a voyage towards a happier, healthier you. So, without further ado, let's dive into the captivating world of Healers Talk Healing. Join us in this enlightening episode with Alanna Carr, a beacon of hope and transformation in the realm of emotional and energy healing. Alanna, a survivor of childhood abuse, has not only navigated her path to healing, but also acquired significant training and certifications to empower others on their journeys. She is a certified EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, and TFT, Thought Field Therapy practitioner, a Reiki master, and has attained level 2 in bioenergy healing. Her story is a testament to the power of resilience and the profound impact of alternative therapies on mental and physical health. If you're seeking alternative pathways to overcome personal challenges, manage stress, or find a deeper emotional balance, Alanna's journey and expertise offer invaluable insights. Whether you're curious about tapping, energy work, or simply looking for inspiration to embark on your own healing journey, Alanna's experiences and guidance provide a compelling and educational perspective. This episode is for anyone ready to explore the depths of their own healing potential and discover effective strategies for emotional and physical wellness. Backed by Alanna's comprehensive training and certifications. So don't miss out on this transformative conversation with Alanna Carr. I am super excited. I've already started laughing. Our preamble is always so interesting, but I am excited for this episode to have one of my besties on. Yeah, all my besties are healers, so they're all going to be on this episode, not on this episode. Let's take that back. On one of these podcast episodes, and that's just the way we roll. So with me, I have Alanna Carr today, and you heard all of her magicness on our preamble and the pre-recorded part. So Alanna, as I ask all of my guests, what is your definition of healing?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you, Nina. And aren't we lucky that all of our besties are healers, right?
Yes, we are very blessed.
Yes, absolutely. So my definition of, it's such a good question. It's not something that I've, really thought of with intention. What is my definition of healing? But my experience of healing is that it's a journey. And I think healing is different for everybody. That's why I think I don't have a specific definition of it, because it does show up differently for everyone, or like different people. But I definitely think that the commonality is that it's a journey for everyone. And it's like peeling an onion. I know it's an analogy that's used a lot, but it's exactly what it is. You deal with what's on one layer and you're like, okay, I can process that and let it go. Let go of the emotions and the heightened emotions, I want to say. I was going to say drama, the drama of it.
It is drama.
But
it is dramatic.
But I feel like that's a bit of a judgment, but that's like because I mean, when I look at myself and the things that I've healed in my healing journey, when I look back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, that was drama. the way I felt about it, and the intensity, and like my unwillingness to let it go, and all of those things that were like, I was so invested in those experiences or whatever, those things that I wanted to heal. It took a little bit to let it go. And so I think really it's a process of, I think, first acknowledging what's there.
Mm,
First it has to start with a recognition
yeah.
that, oh, here's a pattern I'm repeating. It's like this thing. Oh, here this thing is again. Why am I feeling this way again? Why am I dealing with this thing again? And then it's like, you know, giving words to it, acknowledging it, defining what that thing is. And then going through all of the emotions and feeling the emotions and letting them pass through my body, and kind of make peace with it,
Mm,
right? So that when those feelings come up again, or if they come up again, I don't have to be hooked by them,
mm,
right? I don't have to engage in them and experience them in the moment as if I'm reliving the original thing that caused me to feel that way.
mm-hmm,
So then I find like the things that I feel like I've healed are those things where they don't disappear completely. But which I wish,
which
there's
I
part of my brain that's like, come on.
yeah.
Why isn't it gone and just deleted, like, when you
Mhm,
delete something on your computer, right? But I've made peace with the fact that things will trigger those emotions or that feeling again, but I don't have to revert back to, acting whichever age I was when those things were happening in the first place. I can actually just be with, okay, oh, right, this is what's triggering this. This is why I'm feeling this way. And kind of use the tools that I have to be with the emotion of it and then let it go. So I think that's what my definition of healing is. It's like processing and then letting go.
it's I mean, everybody has their sort of similar, I think, version
Mm.
of that, and I would agree that there's the onion. And it's funny that when I heard you say onion this time, because we've talked about this a
Yes.
gazillion times before
Yes.
without pressing record, for
Mhm.
everyone to hear. If only they could all hear our private conversations about healing
I'm scared.
and, and the journey,
Yes.
because the journey, from my experience, is not always enjoyable when we're going through healing. But what
Mhm.
came to mind is, like, yeah, we say like onion layers, and also all the tears that come
Like,
when you peel
right.
an
It's so
onion
true.
layer.
All the tears that come with it. Yes.
The journey of healing. A lot of people on the outside of our lives,
Mhm.
who watch our lives through social media, through a
Mhm.
party maybe, or a gathering, they see the put together pieces of us, right? Like, I did my hair, have my lips, I'm looking good, we're feeling
Right.
good, everything's great. But you
Mhm.
don't see the, I'm going to say, painful parts of healing, because healing is not easy. It's not enjoyable. You've seen me go through it. I've seen you go through it, and none of it is pleasurable until
No.
the aha and the peace comes. You're right. Until you say to yourself, okay, well, that's not what I want anymore. Like, at some point, you take control
Yes.
of the intensity of the drama. I would say drama too, because, well, I'm a drama queen, right? So yes, of course it's dramatic. And also the, like, I don't, this is not what I want.
Mhm.
And then trying to, like, change the not what you want to what you want. So what is it that you do want? Because many of us walk around in the world, I don't want this,
Mhm.
and we don't want to feel those feelings.
No.
And then so then the journey is, no, I
The
don't want to feel
resistance,
this.
the resistance of it all. Yes.
And it's so funny that you brought this up about processing and the process itself, because I
Mhm.
was at a recent get together, and I was talking about processing, like the
Okay.
processing of, I don't know how I got in this conversation with somebody, but
Mhm.
I was talking about it. And the one thing she said to me is like, yeah, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And I don't even know if I'm even interested in
Mhm.
processing. But it's so funny, because, oh my God, I'm going to sound like a soapbox preacher, but like, seriously, the cost of not processing. Oh, you know what I was talking about it,
Right.
as you know, and the listeners, if I don't know what order our episodes are going to come into,
Okay.
but I dealt in the past 6 months with a lot of body pain. And then I had an energetic healing, and that body pain really just disappeared after I understood that years and years and years of not processing, and not all of it is not intentional, right? Like all of it, it's not intentional that we're not processing.
Right.
Something's just, you just,
You're not aware that it's
oh yeah,
operating.
I'm doing this as if the listeners can see what I'm doing, right? But if you watch on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I'm
You'll
doing.
see.
But you know, like they just bypass you, and then all of a sudden something comes up and you're like, oh, okay. You know, and that uncomfortable feeling comes in from processing it, knowing who you are at the moment, and the whole onion thing about, well, you thought you dealt with that. Well, I thought that was done.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 1,000%. The journey of healing is, I don't think it's ever done, because there's always going to be a certain level of that, I'm going to say stuck into your walls and into the cells of who you are, because part of it makes you who you are.
Absolutely. Your brain gets wired during these, a certain way during these experience, like during your lifetime, and your lifetime is made up of all these experiences that you've had, good and not so good. Right. So that's what I had to come to terms. I struggled with that on my journey for a long, it used to make me so angry, because I'm like, I dealt with that. Why is it back here? And it's like, I had to really just, when I came to really understand how the brain works, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's just a worn in pattern, right? It's like, it's many years of that pattern working. It's like, it's strong. And so it's like, okay, that's how my brain is wired. So now what? Now what do I do with that? Right. But I think the fact that I could recognize that it's my brain, it's not something that's like defective in me. I used to think that like, I'm not doing this healing thing right. Right. What's wrong with me?
I'm not doing it right. I'm not meditating right. I'm not healing right.
Right? It's like my brain's still doing this thing. Like I'm not doing it right. What's wrong? Because that's it, always where my brain goes. What's wrong with me? I must be doing it wrong. And so once I realized how the brain works, right, and like how it gets put together and how it develops, it gave me a lot of like breathing space. Just the like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just the way my brain was made. Right? Like it's just the way my brain was made. Would I like it to have been made differently? Sure. But then, like you said, I wouldn't be who I am right now if if it was wired differently, right? So it does really just give me peace. Sometimes it takes me a little to remember, right? That's my brain.
A little bit,
What's
right?
happening right now? But I can recognize it a lot faster than what I used to be able to, and then let it go and be like, okay, just breathe.
There's the key, I think, right there. This is a similar kind of thread throughout every conversation I have with all of the, the healers that I've been speaking with, is that it's the recognition a lot faster.
Yes.
It's not like all of a sudden we're some magical, like, this doesn't impact me, okay. It's more like, this is taking me out, but how long am I going to let it take me out for?
Exactly.
An hour, a day, a year? Like, how long is this going to impact me, and what tools do I have now in my toolbox to use? And usually immediately, just for the listeners to share with you, usually immediately you don't go into like fix mode. You're more like, Sama.
Yeah.
Then
Curse
all
mode.
the stuff your brain does in the moment, and you're feeling, and you're dealing, and you're angry, or you're not angry, or you're upset or sad, or whatever happens in the moment. That's okay. That's okay, because you and I are special people that then make all of that wrong.
Yes.
So then the more cursing comes out, you're mad at the situation, then you're mad that you're mad at the situation.
Yes, Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm mad at my brain for reacting that the way it's doing. And yeah. Yeah.
And thank God you and my tribe are one of my tools. It's
Yes.
like, you know how Michelle Obama in her book, I can't remember the name of the book, The
Becoming.
Light Within You or something
Oh,
about
that
the
one.
light,
Okay. Yep.
that one, where she talks about her kitchen table.
Yes.
And so, I think it's so important to have a support system in
Hmm.
place, whether they're your soul tribe, which, has taken us some time to put together and find, or it's a healer, or it's a therapist or a doctor, or, you know, an animal, something to help you
Yeah.
cope with the things that you're going through. I think
Mhm.
it's really important. And I think from everyone that I've spoken to that have become healing practitioners, there's a journey that they've taken. And it's like more likely than not, one of the tools that they used is like,
Mhm.
oh, this really works. We kind of latch onto it and we want to, immerse ourselves into it.
Mhm.
And I'm just trying to segue into, of course, you know, what's what led you to where you are now?
Um, it's funny, exactly what you were just pointing to. My healing journey, I mean, I'm I'm about to be 40. I'm not gonna claim it. 40 something.
Well, you still,
Um,
that's all I got to say.
and I think my healing journey started in my 20s.
Mm,
I went through depression and like couldn't get out of bed. Um, just barely existing kind
mm,
of depression. Um, and I couldn't think my way out of it, you know? And I mean, I was able to, I was able to work. I was working, but that was about it. That that took everything in me to like get out of bed and go to work and then come back home. And it wasn't until I had thoughts of harming myself
mm,
that I realized, oh wait, there's something really wrong here, right? And luckily, I I immediately called my family doctor and was like, I need help.
mm,
I just figured she would know a therapist or would guide me in some way, and she did.
mm,
And so my first person that, that started my healing journey was therapy, my therapist. And she was excellent. It was wonderful. Um, and that worked for a while, and I went on my merry way and, um didn't, go through that kind of depressive episode again. I always had some anxiety, that I kind of trying to figure out how to like manage that or whatever. And then like in my 30s, late 30s, I discovered, personal development courses. And that's when I really dove into
mm.
this journey. And I think that's where it started. I was just like, what is this? It was like mind hacking. It was like, I never like it really started with like shifting your mindset. What? That was a new concept, right? But the difference it made in being and like allowing me to let go of some of these things that I was like really hanging on to, and to let go of it quickly. Like I was like, what? Like it was like it almost seemed magical at the time. I was like, how is that possible? Now, I mean, there are certain things I like really hung on to, it didn't just poof disappeared. It was many years, but there was those like tools that were there to like to trigger that let go, right? To like and then I realized, I wasn't hanging it on for years. I was maybe hanging on for a month, or then it became like 2 weeks I was hanging on to it, then a week, so it just kind of shortened that interval, being able to let things go and kind of work through it. But with that, I also felt there was something missing, like that was, very much action driven, like it was action oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't sit in your feelings. Don't really like, nah, who cares? Like, not who cares about your feelings, but it was like, okay, great. Now what are you going to do? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're feeling that way. Great. What are you going to do? So it was all very action oriented, which was great in the moment. But I realized over time that I'm like, there's just something missing there. And then that's when I I think I discovered Reiki first. I think it was Reiki. I think it was our friend Liliana. Um, and she one day I actually had a physical pain and she put her hand on me and I was like immediately felt like there was stars and sparks shooting out of my arm and I was like, what are you doing? Like, I was like, what's happening? Are you shooting energy through me? Like, what's happening? And she's like, I'm just doing Reiki on you. I'm like, okay. And I felt the benefit of, there was a less pain in my arm where she was doing Reiki. So that's kind of triggered my, oh, what is this energy thing? Let me go figure that out. I want to learn more about that. And then through through taking courses in Reiki that I was kind of like, oh, I feel like this calls to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, I think this is something that is kind of cool that I can do, that I want to do, that, I want to like learn as much as I can about it. Um, and then through that, I learned more like energy healing from Yvonne. So it's like a combination of Reiki and energy healing, which is so it was all this, you know, the world of energy, and I
Yeah.
and um and it just felt uh hmm, safe. Like it felt safe. It felt like it's something I recognized.
Mm.
I what's on the tip of my tongue is like that it felt like home, and I feel like that might be an overstatement, but it felt very comfortable,
Mm.
right? And that it was something I was supposed to do. I don't know. Maybe it's a calling. I guess that's a calling, right? I don't know.
um,
I guess
yeah.
that's a calling. But I saw the benefits that I know I felt the benefits for myself, right? And that's what triggered me to like, oh, I won't need to go learn about this more. And then EFT, so emotional freedom technique or tapping. I had heard about tapping years ago,
Mm.
like when Oprah had somebody on doing tapping, and I was like, huh? And I'm like, really? I don't know about that, but I just wasn't ready to receive
Well,
it, right?
yeah, the world of woo, right? What is that? From coming from two very logical people.
Yes. Oh, I should mention, yes, I have a science degree. I'm very show me the proof.
And I don't have a science degree. I got my degree in psychology, but I went in for business. But yeah, you and I would say are very logical people. So there has to be some sort of explanation that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm saying this for the listeners because 7 years ago, if you told me about Reiki and EFT and
Mhm.
all of those things, I'd be like, yeah, so I'm going to see a therapist.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what's weird for me is that like when I think back when I was a kid, I believed in like woo-woo stuff. Like I wanted to, read tarot, and I wanted to, I don't know if I didn't want to see dead people, but I did not want to see that. But like I wanted to have like a psychic ability. Like I just thought that was so cool, right? And anyways, but yeah, you know, I that had this analytical, logical side to me that I was kind of like, so I had like part of me believed in it, but part of me was like, maybe you need some medication for that instead, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it really, it kind of was, the proof was in the pudding. Like I experienced it. EFT, I think, I'm trying to think of the first time I experienced, I think it was at the retreat that we went to
Okay.
with Yvonne, that Yvonne and Daniela were hosting, and they did a session of tapping. And I just like immediately was like, oh, this is it. This is this is the stuff right here. Because it was, I never experienced like the feelings that I had and like what it brought up for me.
Mm.
Like deep stuff, memories from like when I was teeny tiny that they'd stop writing in the background. I had no idea, but just brought it right to the forefront. And I was like, oh, that is why I do X, Y, and Z, right? Like it just brought it right up to it, but it did it in such an easy, comfortable way. It wasn't like there was no like major emotional upheaval. I mean, that was my experience, right? It would just seem so like all I was doing was tapping on different parts of my face and and I was like, okay. And then this thing, well, oh, okay, right? So that kind of started it. Was like I need to train in this. I need to learn more about this. I need to do this more
Well,
because
let's talk about this. Join the Miracles Directory, where healers connect and wellness begins. Join a community of trusted holistic professionals, or find your path to healing and peace. Visit themiraclesdirectory.com. Start your journey today.
this is something that is kind of cool that I can do, that I want to do, that I want to like learn as much as I can about it. And then through that I learned more like energy healing from Yvonne. So it's like a combination of Reiki and energy healing, which is, so it was like, it was all this, the world of energy. And um, and it just felt, uh, safe. Like it felt safe. It felt like it's something I recognized.
Mm.
I what's on the tip of my tongue is like that it felt like home, and I feel like that might be an overstatement, but it felt very comfortable.
Mm.
Right? And that it was something I was supposed to do. I don't know. Maybe it's a calling. I guess that's a calling, right? I don't know. I guess
Yeah.
that's a calling. But I saw the benefits, that I know I felt the benefits for myself, right? And that's what triggered me to like, oh, I won't need to go learn about this more. And then EFT, so emotional freedom technique, or tapping. I had heard about tapping years ago.
Mm.
Like when Oprah had somebody on doing tapping, and I was like, huh? And I'm like, really? I don't know about that, but I just wasn't ready to receive it,
Well,
right?
yeah, the world of woo-woo, right? What is that? From coming from two very logical people.
Yes. Oh, I should mention, yes, I have a science degree. I'm very, show me the proof.
And I don't have a science degree. I got my degree in psychology, but I went in for business. But yeah, you and I would say are very logical people. So there has to be some sort of explanation that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm saying this for the listeners because 7 years ago, if you told me about Reiki and EFT and all of those things, I'd be like, yeah, so I'm going to see a therapist.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what's weird for me is that like when I think back when I was a kid, I believed in like woo-woo stuff. Like I wanted to, read tarot, and I wanted to, you know, I don't know if I didn't want to see dead people, but I did not want to see that. But like, I wanted to have like a psychic ability. Like, I just thought that was so cool, right? And anyways, but yeah, you know, that had this analytical, logical side to me that I was kind of like, so as much as, so I had like, part of me believed in it, but part of me was like, maybe you need some medication for that instead, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I really, I kind of was, the proof was in the pudding. Like, I experienced it. EFT, I think, I'm trying to think of the first time I experienced, I think it was at the retreat that we went to,
Okay.
with Yvonne, that Yvonne and Daniela were hosting, and they did a session of tapping. And I just like immediately was like, oh, this is it. This is this is the stuff right here. Because it was, I never experienced like the feelings that I had and like what it brought up for me.
Mm.
Like like deep stuff, memories from like when I was teeny tiny that they're operating in the background. I had no idea, but just brought it right to the forefront. And I was like, oh, that is why I do X, Y, and Z, right? Like, it just brought it right up to it, but it did it in such an easy, comfortable way. It wasn't like, there was no like major emotional upheaval. I mean, that was my experience, right? It would just seem so, like, all I was doing was tapping on different parts of my face, and and I was like, okay. And then this thing, well, oh, okay, right? So that kind of started it. Was like, I need to train in this. I need to learn more about this. I need to do this more,
So
because
let's talk about this.
this what it
What it
is.
actually is, how it works,
Mhm.
and how, like, what the benefits are. Because I have experienced it. Same as you, it started. I think it did start at the retreat that we both attended.
Mhm.
With one of the healers that is also on the Miracles Directory, Yvonne
Oh,
Montez. And then I actually had a session with you, and that was phenomenal. I actually had a session with Daniela first. That's
okay.
right. I
Hmm.
forgot about that. I had a
Hmm.
session with Daniela first, and um, in that session, it was the first time I was able to see myself in my body
Hmm.
the way my body looks now. So
Oh,
I always
Daniela. Mhm.
struggled. I always struggled with, I was a thin person all the way up until my early 20s, and then I slowly started gaining weight. And now I know it was through it, why,
Mhm.
and why it's still, something that I'm working on. Um but I got to like close my eyes and see myself as I am now, not this thin 20-year-old trying to achieve this thing that may or may not be achievable.
Mhm.
And it gave me, and the reason I'm sharing this is so the listeners can hear the benefits, and then you can go in and give them the technicals behind it.
Yep.
But it really had me come together. I don't know how else to say it.
Mhm.
I was no
Yeah.
longer Nina at 20, and then Nina at, well, I think it was about maybe a little over 50 when I did my first,
Mhm.
um when I experienced it first. And then when I worked with you, we were working on like the sweets, and
Mhm.
it worked for a while until I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna eat them.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that it's one of those things, like any tool, that
Get to keep,
you have to, keep doing it.
yeah, you have to practice, right? Like,
Have
I
to
mean,
practice.
at the end of it, you keep practicing.
Mhm.
And that, like yoga, people get yoga as a practice. So is life, by the way. You don't just
Right?
live one day and then you're done.
And you're gone. Yeah. It is all of it is a practice. And um yeah, what EFT is, for those who don't know, it stands for emotional freedom technique. Um a lot of people know it as tapping. And it's a series of, so you're tapping on, sorry, I'm like, how do I explain it? You're tapping on various acupressure points. So on your hands, you can tap on your fingers, and then around your face, your neck, your kind of upper torso, and your head. And it does, the acupressure points have to do with your energy meridians. Okay, so it gets those in balance. So a lot of times sometimes the energy is flowing backwards on those meridians, which is not supposed to do that. Right? So the tapping interrupts that and then gets it flowing the way that it's supposed to. Now, you don't necessarily feel like anything's happening when you're tapping. Although sometimes when you tap on some points, some of the pressure points, they can get tender. And that usually is an indication that there's some stuck energy there. Yeah.
I'm tickling my face because I get sinus infections so much.
Yeah. It's funny, me too. And I do. Yeah, that's, if I feel anything when I'm tapping, it's like, oh, there's a spot right there. And there's a spot on my hand that's always tender. I'm like, what's going on there? And what it does is, okay, so here's the funny thing. So we were just talking about how I'm like very analytical and show me the proof. It's not surprising that I am drawn towards EFT because it is one of the modalities that has been studied extensively.
Yes. It's one of the number one things they use for
PTSD.
PTSD. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of scientific proof, scientific evidence of how it works. And they found in the studies that yes, depression, PTSD for sure, is one of the best things for PTSD. So in my mind, it's one of the best things for healing. We may not all have PTSD, but there are things that we're hanging on to are trauma-based.
Yeah,
right?
and I think if we were to take the charge out of that word trauma, because I think that word is so charged, we think, oh, I don't have trauma. I just have, oh, so-and-so said this to me when I was 12 and I never recovered from that. Those are traumatic situations.
Yeah.
Trauma has like
there's
a huge range of I would say severity in the effect that it has.
Yes.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is that that's what I loved about Reiki as well. There's not as many scientific studies, but there's lots of studies. But for EFT, there are a lot of studies. And when I took my trauma informed certificate, that's one of the techniques that they teach in a very simple, short, like it was literally like, here, we're going to teach you how to do this in 10 minutes. Okay, great. And I'm like, yeah.
I need a little bit more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, more than 10 minutes is great. But so go on with what you were saying.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, what they found was not only was it it's an effective modality to treat depression and PTSD and anxiety, sleep deprivation. There's a bunch of things that because it's kind of all of those things that trigger your fight or flight. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the word.
Response, right?
The fight or flight kind of instincts, yes. Because it taps into your nervous system. That's what you're tapping on. You're tapping into your nervous system and allowing it to calm down. So you take it from like this really heightened space and very quickly you can calm yourself down and you get into that relaxed space. So you're not always in that like adrenaline pumping, I have to either run away or I freeze, or punch somebody, right? Like those three things, right?
I feel like I do all three.
Right, exactly. And what was really cool about the studies, because they compared it to people who were just doing talk therapy or, therapeutic methods, that the people in the study groups that were doing EFT, they saw benefits a lot longer, like many, many months later. I think it was a year and a half later. That they were still reaping benefits. They still were experiencing the benefits compared to the group that was doing like more traditional therapies. So it's not a magic bullet. Like there is no magic bullet. So there is some practice to it. But what I like about it is that it's also very easy to learn. It's not complicated, you know. Once you learn the sequence, you have the sequence. Now it's just a matter of recognizing when you could use it, right? And sometimes I still forget. It's like, oh right, I have this great tool. And so and tap on myself. But it's funny that, as a practitioner, I still forget sometimes but it's I like anybody, I get hooked into whatever's triggering me, and then it's like, oh right.
All bets are off.
Tools. I have lots of tools. Let's use my tools. And I one of the things that I liked about, or what I experienced with EFT, I did a program, and it was about weight loss and like cravings and all those things and the emotions around eating. And I did one session, and I saw like immediately my cravings for the thing that I'm obsessed with, which was gummy bears. I love gummy bears. It's bad. It's a bad thing. But like I would crave them like very intensely, and like to the point I couldn't ignore the craving. Like I had to have it, right? And did some tapping on that, and all of a sudden it was like, I actually don't want these things. And my bag of gummy bears sat open on my counter for months, and I would see it every day, and I'd be like, eh. And I was like, what is this voodoo magic? Now the effects eventually waned, right? Because I kind of went on to tapping for like different things. I didn't continue to focus on that one thing. So it's now one of the things I'm taking up again, to like, because I get so excited and I'm like, oh, I want to work on this, and then I want to work on this, and I want to work on this. And so it's like practicing for myself intentionality of like, let's just work on one thing now. And but I the what I got out of tapping on that, and I did some tapping on that with Daniela as well, but it really brought up the subconscious, the what's operating in the background. And that's also one of the things they saw in the research, is that it taps into your the things that's running in the background. We have our conscious mind, and that's it's like only 5%, right? Like 95% of that's of why we do the things we do and how we are is in our subconscious, and we're not even aware of it. So yeah, it brought up memories that I didn't even know. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like I was teeny tiny, and there it was like, oh, I made a decision. Or what was happening was like, oh, if I was only bigger, or if I was, if I was heavier, people wouldn't be able to invade my space and pick me up. Because that was the memory. Because I was a very cute child, and people liked to pick me up, but I also was
just so people, she was very cute.
Thank you.
Still cute. She was super cute, this kid.
And I mean, I look at pictures of myself, I'm like, yeah, if I saw that kid, I'd want to pick her up too. She's so cute. I'd want to eat her up, right? But I was also a very shy child, and I also picked up other people's energy. I realize that now, looking back. So that's why I think I didn't really like to be around people a lot. But people used to like to pick me up all the time. And the more I struggled, the more they thought it was cute. Right?
Yeah.
And so I remembered it was through an EFT tapping session that I remembered thinking, if I was only bigger, right? If I they
Mm,
would be able to pick me up, if I was only, and I think that started the my struggle with my weight, because I thought of it as a good thing, right? As
yeah.
a child, not knowing, of course, the struggles that or how society views people, especially women with, who have, extra weight on their body.
That's a
Uh,
whole other conversation.
it's a whole other conversation. But, I think what I'm clear for myself is that I would never have come up like that would never have presented itself. Like I don't think I can't think of any other m- modality that would have brought that to the forefront.
It's incredible.
Right? And that just gave me a whole lot of space around myself and my body,
Well,
because
it's like once you know, right? Like
yeah.
once you know, like now you have a tool you discovered. It's like, when you go to like the archaeologist, they discover something about humanity and you're like, well,
Mhm.
once you know, you can't unknow it.
Exactly.
Right. And once you've seen it, once it's come out of, in the courses that you and I have taken, once it come out of your blind spot and you
Yes.
can see it, you can't unsee it. And now you use the tools that you've learned so
Mhm.
that you can, I'm going to say manage it. So you can manage
Yes.
it, right?
Manage
It's
it. Yeah.
you can manage it. You can come to, like what you said at the beginning, come to a place of acceptance and peace with it
Mm.
and move forward. I mean, I saw those thoughts unfold that you're just talking about. I was in that conversation, not in the moment, but when you
Mm.
discovered and you shared it, your face just lit up because
Mhm.
you got for yourself, oh, now I know how to protect myself in a way that's going to work, and how to let go of what a child's thoughts were to
Right.
protect themselves, because we don't know when we're kids. We only have so
No.
much language and awareness, and I think we're very astute as children. It's just that we don't always have the language for it.
Yes, and we also don't know the ways of the world, right? So
No.
we're very self-centered. Children are very self-centered. That's what they know. They know themselves and their immediate family, right? Like
Mhm.
their world revolves around themselves. So when we make something mean, like we think something's happening, or we make it mean something, and we think we understand it, we usually make it about ourselves. There's something wrong with me. There's some, like, had that look that that person gave you, or whatever, probably was not even about you, but you saw it and you thought, oh my god, or you thought whatever, right? And then you internalized it, and that's what kids tend to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that, yeah, when you said, you saw my face, it gave me so much freedom, because I made myself wrong, like, for many, many years. Like, why can't I, like, get a handle of this? Like, why can't I, like, I've accomplished many things. Why have I not been able to accomplish this goal? But I realized I was, my I was protecting myself.
Hmm.
Um, and instead of being mad at I think I was 4 at the time, or 5, my 5-year-old self, I appreciated. I could just love her. Like, I could just love the decision that, like, instead of being mad at her, like, what's wrong with you? Why did you think
Like,
this?
come on.
Why weren't you smarter? Come on. Right? Right? I could just see him like, oh, I got it. It's like I was just trying to protect myself, right? And so it just I could just exhale, it was like a lot of exhale, like, and freedom in that space, and, like, in that knowing, right?
And I know that there is EFT for children. I know that that's something that you're passionate about,
Mm.
supporting kids on their journeys of healing and feeling whole and complete at all times. Wouldn't it be this whole thing, like this whole, when I say the whole thing, I'm talking about the whole gamut of mindfulness and
Yeah.
self-awareness and having um giving children the space to give them these tools when they're so young,
Mm.
is it is such a beautiful thing. Like I know there are certain countries that kids and certain classrooms where
Mhm.
they implement meditation, they implement EFT, they implement those things. And so, I think that when we talk about healing, because we're in a space in the world right now, as this is being recorded, where we need, maybe in every time, I don't know, in every generation, somebody has said we need a lot of healing, right? What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I think that's the problem, is that we never actually get to that healing, which is why we keep repeating the same patterns over and over.
Yeah. So I think this is the time. There's a time, like, we have a platform. It's called a podcast. We have social media. We have places where we can have these conversations around healing, and not from a perspective of simply the woo-woo.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with the woo-woo, by the way. Kids, we live in the woo-woo. We are the woo-woo. It's like, oh, look at this phone. Let's just pretend it's a calculator. Let's just pretend it's something else.
Yeah, it's so true.
And have fun and do crazy things and be happy and glorious.
Yes.
And then and then we grow up. Then we become adults and we become boring.
Yes, we're told to grow up and to be more serious. And
yes. Except for, like, I'm trying to think about you and me being more serious.
I mean,
yeah, maybe before we met, we were more serious.
Yes, we got all our seriousness out before we met.
We got it out of the way, because we're just all a bunch of crazy nutheads. And I'm saying that proudly, without trying to offend anyone by calling ourselves nutheads. It's because we are enjoying life. And the gift, I think, of healing, that's like the gift of what you do for people, the gift that you provide in giving them the space. Because when you go through EFT, and anyone can Google it on the internet, what EFT looks like, what a session looks like. We're not going to get into it today because it's so easily searchable. But the one thing that I've walked away with the times that I've experienced it is the acknowledgement of where you are now.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest gift that EFT can give you, is while you're tapping, one of the things you say is like, even though this is happening and I'm feeling like, I'm feeling this way about this person, I'm going to do XYZ, as you tap on the meridians. And I think it's so simple.
It is. And what I love about you said that even though statement, it's like, just for anybody who hasn't experienced it, you start off with even though, and yes, it's like, I'm feeling XYZ. I love myself fully and completely. And you start there. And many people are confronted and they have trouble saying that last part. But, it's like, hold the space, and it's like, okay, it's okay. You don't have to believe it. Just say the words as we tap, but we all start there. And I think that's a beautiful thing about EFT, is that it, like you said, it acknowledges where you are. And you make a declaration that you love yourself regardless, right?
That's the keys to the kingdom of healing. At the end of the day, even if we want to call it forgiveness, we want to call it acceptance, we want to call it whatever we want to call it, but the core principle is love.
Absolutely.
Like bringing love into the space. And I think when you are going through whatever it is you're going through, and that is what you're continuously telling yourself, eventually over time, like, you'll fake it till you make it, man.
And when it's very powerful, right? Words are very powerful. And, I think we've all experienced it when you wake up and you're like, your first thought is negative. You have like, the next thing you do, you get out of bed, you stub your toe, like, it's like a series of like negative things that happen, right? But if you like, on those days where you wake up, you're like, I feel good. Oh, it's going to be a great day. It's like, I feel like that's kind of how your day unfolds. Right. So the words that we use are so very powerful. And when they can be combined with other things, just amplifies that.
I think that's it. It's harnessing the power for good.
For good. Yes.
Like it's true what you said. And I think, this is the great place to end our conversation, which is talking about harnessing what you're saying with the tools that you have, bring them together. Like, that's what EFT is that's where it's so powerful, because
Absolutely.
you are harnessing and changing. You're not necessarily changing what you're saying. It's like I said, but I'm just going to repeat myself. It's acknowledging, and then, saying, giving yourself an affirmation to couple it so that your brain waves start to change. And then, the points on your body start to change, the acupressure points there. It's beautiful. When you have that marriage and that partnership, how
Yeah.
can you go wrong?
I mean, I don't think you can.
There's as long as you're using everything for the intention, a loving intention of healing.
Yes.
I don't think you can go wrong. And I just want to say thank you so much, Alanna, for spending time with me here today, for doing what you do for people through the healing that you take them through. I've experienced it myself, so I know what a pleasure it is working with you, and the follow-up that you do is wonderful. Not everyone follows up. That's not just because I'm your friend. I know you do that for everybody. Just putting it out there. I don't want your listeners to go like, you're a friend, so no wonder you get the follow-up.
No, it's true. But I do that for everybody that I work with.
Yes, she does. And we're always on a continuous journey. And with that, if anyone is looking to reach out to you and work with you, can find Alanna on the Miracles Directory, miraclesdirectory.com. Search Alanna Carr. You will find her information and you can reach out to her from there. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, my wonderful friend. Thank you for joining us today on Healers Talk Healing. We hope you've been inspired and empowered on your holistic healing journey. If you've enjoyed today's episode and want to continue learning and growing with us, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, and review our podcast. Your feedback and support mean the world to us. Remember, healing is a lifelong journey, and you have the power to transform your life in profound ways. Stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop believing in your own capacity for healing.